Now you've listened to some Gregorian chant, where you heard a lot of men singing the same thing. So we have, at the same time, we have plenty of nuns out there doing their jobs as well. And one of the most famous of those nuns from the early days is a woman named Hildegard of Bingen. Now, you may have noticed that people don't have names like we're used to hearing. It's usually somebody from somewhere, and that's because that's how people were identified back then. So this is Hildegard, and she was from the town of Bingen, which is now in Germany. So she was a nun, but she was pretty exceptional. In fact, she was so exceptional that they later made her a saint. So she was a composer. She is the first woman composer that we still have her music. So that's really significant. So this is a woman who lived in like the year 1000, and we have music that she wrote. So we know that women were making those kinds of contributions back then, and we're just fortunate that we have her examples to work from. But not only was she a composer, obviously as a nun she had all of her religious duties, but she was also, would have been considered, if she'd lived a little bit later, she could have been a Renaissance man, because she was interested in science, and she wrote like scientific papers. Just for fun, she made up her own language. She did art. She did all sorts of things. So she really studied all the different kinds of things that were going on, a very diverse kind of woman. And it's not something we think about from women from that time period. So it's really significant that we know so much about Hildegard. Now, one of the things that Hildegard composed, or she did several probably, are things that we call morality plays. As we saw when we looked at visual art from the period, a lot of the paintings were trying to teach lessons or teach about the Bible, to educate people. So she wrote musical versions of those same sorts of paintings that we call these morality plays. So they would take virtues and vices, basically, and they would be like your little bad angel, a good angel on your shoulders, and they would try to get the person that they're singing to do the bad thing or the good thing, and use that as a lesson about how to live properly. So that's a really kind of a cool idea from way back when. The piece that we're going to listen to by Hildegard is called, and I'll try to get this Italian because it's got one of those issimas stuck on the end, Splendidissima Gemma. Splendidissima Gemma. Splendid, we know, would be splendid or great. And if you put more issimas on the end, we know that that makes it even more splendid. So this is like the most splendid you can be. And Gemma is for gem or a jewel. During this period of time, there was a great deal of worship of the Virgin Mary. There were whole groups of people who wrote compositions about Mary. We have lots of paintings of Mary. And you go to any art museum and you go to that period of time in the museum, you're going to see Mary everywhere. So it was almost like a cult. So that whole focus on Mary appears in lots of things. And in this, where the text is talking about the splendid gem and about how, talking about how Jesus is going to come and bring us back from the depths that Eve took us to when she took that apple from the snake. Okay, so far you've heard a single voice. But do we have monophonic texture here? No, we don't, because underneath we have some sort of instrument that's playing like a drone. So there's just this underneath. After a while, people wanted more interest than monophonic texture. And in popular music, they were actually hearing more texture than that. So it was not really a big leap to go from chant to something a little more interesting. This still sounds like chant. It's, in this case, it was pretty melismatic. We heard the same syllable with a lot of different pitches on it. But we've added another line to it. So we have here the beginnings of texture beyond monophonic. And in most cases, it's going to be polyphonic. Because if we were really well educated in chants of the time, which we aren't, but people in that time would have been, we might recognize that drone-like thing going underneath as actually being another chant. Because that was a pretty common way of constructing a piece of music. You take a chant and then add some new melody above it. So you'd have a familiar ground and then new things on the top. But sometimes what happens is they would take that original chant and stretch the notes out so long that you would never know it was the chant unless you compress them back up. So if you look at the titles of lots of pieces from this period of time, you will see 2 or 3 different lines of text as title, because they might even be singing in different texts. But that bottom one, whatever the bottom line is, whether it's being sung or played by an instrument, would have the name of the chant probably that it came from, and then you go, oh, okay, I know that one, and I would be familiar with that. So let's see what happens now. We've had a drone sort of thing. We've had our solo singer. Let's see how she continues. Now we can see that there's another instrument added in there. It sort of sounds like a clarinet, but we know it's not a clarinet because it's not been invented yet. So it's probably a shawm or some other early instrument that we'll talk about in just a minute. So I have that video for you in YouTube. I also have the translation for you so that you will know what she's singing about. And I'd like you to listen to all of that just so you get a real sense of what that kind of music was like and what one of the really wonderful contributions of this early woman composer, Hildegard von Bingen, which is the German version for that, and what she's left for us that will show us that how much women have really done over time.